for our listeners who are data scientists who are prototyping models and haven't done that kind of more software engineering, machine learning engineering aspects of model deployment, what is CI/CD? What is load balancing? What is logging?
Yeah, sure. In no particular order. I mean, I think actually backing up, when you call modelbit.deploy and we're really proud that there's this sort of one line and now it's in production. Well, in production means a lot of things and it has a lot of needs, right? There's a reason why prior to Modelbit there were full-time ML engineers, full-time software engineers working on this. So if you get a lot of load to your product, maybe it's Monday morning, maybe you have a big new marketing promotion, whatever, and a lot of people are using your product now. That might result in more load on the machine learning model. And you need literally a load balancer sitting in front of it, managing that load so it doesn't crash. So we supply one of those. Um, CI/CD is as you make changes and push them, all of your testing and all of your deployment processes run automatically. And so we certainly supply that. But also, maybe more importantly, it's pretty common for companies to have these set up, let's say in their GitHub account, where, as part of a push or as part of a merge request, these, various testing and integration processes run. And because we're backed by Git in your GitHub account, all of those would run for your model deployments too automatically, which is a really nice win for the rest of the company in terms of getting these data science models in the main line with the rest of the company's products and processes. And then, you mentioned logging, which obviously once you've deployed the thing, you want to know like what inputs did it receive, what inferences did it give, and if you have any logging code as part of your model, you want to print out what it was thinking or what parts of the code were reached or whatever. All that gets put in the logs. The logs can be integrated with your company's favorite logging system or just viewed on your Modelbit application. And so all those things, I mean, there's a bunch more, but there's a whole constellation of things that get stood up as part of a deployment so that you have a relatively full featured suite that you will discover you need once you deploy a model.
Yeah, that all makes perfect sense to me. The load balancing is obviously critical because you want to be deploying a model that lots of people are going to use.
Yeah.
And so you can't just have it running on a single server. As you start to have 10 users, 100 users, 1,000 users, 10,000 users, the model is going to need to be scaled up. Your whole application is going to need to be scaled up. So it's cool that Modelbit allows you to do that in an automated way. And so um, that's really awesome. And then in addition, this logging point that you're making is so critical because when people once you have your machine learning model in production, you need to understand how your users are using the model with respect to the inputs, because there's going to be inputs that they provide that result in suboptimal results. And you're
Yeah.
going to want to be able to dig into those. You're going to want to be able to check that the kinds of inputs that people are putting in are what were anticipated. Issues like drift, which we'll get into later on, can be handled that way. And then critically, these what the outputs were provided a given input, this is so important, especially in this now large language model LLM world that we're in, where those inputs and outputs can end up being invaluable for being able to fine tune your production model or some other model that you might like to build. So
Yeah.
these user inputs and outputs can end up being proprietary data that provides your company with a defensible moat. Because let's say, your original production model, you might have used data that you scrape from the internet, and your competitor could get those data as well. But once you start to have your users interacting with your platform,
Yeah.
as they use it more and more and more, you have this proprietary defensible data set that makes
No,
better
it's an
models.
important point because you'll get to a place where, I mean, you mentioned drift. You'll get to a place where eventually the model will drift in some capacity, right? And you are trying to understand why the model, you might start out by thinking, I just need to log the inferences, or I just need to output the inferences and I'll figure it out. But then you want to know why the inferences are changing. And all of a sudden you discover, gosh, it would be really nice to know if the inputs have been changing over the last month or year or whatever it's been. And so having access to those inputs as well and all the logs information, it's one of those things that you discover you need retroactively.
Awesome. Yeah, exactly. And so I think the only one that we haven't gotten back to yet is the CI/CD. So what is continuous integration, continuous deployment?
Yeah, it's broadly the idea that every time you sort of either push to Git or do a pull request in GitHub and merge that branch into the main branch, there's a set of technical processes that run, and they are usually about running the tests. You have your sort of unit tests, and then it's named continuous integration. You'll have your integration tests and whatever else needs to happen to ensure that the thing is ready for production, right? And so you might just want, as a mature tech company, you might just want a set of tests that runs every time a change is made to production that makes sure that the site doesn't crash, the core functionality works, users can still log in, whatever. Machine learning models are no exception. If you're pushing this machine learning model into the product, we want to ensure it's not going to break the product. And so the fact that we're backed by your GitHub repo, you do a modelbit.deploy, that triggers a git push. And if you've been using a branch and you merge that branch, it triggers your CI/CD. The product's test will run again before the model arrives in main and is therefore being used in the product. Companies, with mature engineering processes really appreciate that aspect of it, that Modelbit's pushes are integrated into the same mainline CI/CD as every other part of the company's, code processes.